In this video, we have 6 books that will go up in value based on cover art alone. Stay tuned.
Bry's Comics.
We have a new giveaway on deck. Subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, and like this video, and you're entered to win a CGC 9.8 Amazing Spider-Man #1, the first cameo appearance of Cindy Moon, who later becomes Silk, and also the first appearance of Clash. And I'm trying something new this year. I'm going to do a monthly giveaway on the YouTube channel, which will include at least one slab, and I'll often probably add a bunch of stuff to it as well throughout the month. And the way it works is if you comment on each video, as long as you're subscribed, if you comment and like each video, it's another entry. And so at the end of the month, I'll pick a random video and then select a random comment from that video. So if you comment on all the videos, you greatly increase your chances of winning a slab. Also, head over to bryscomics.com and sign up for the newsletter for another chance to win a monthly giveaway. This month is a CGC 9.8 A-Force #1, the first appearance of Singularity, and the first all-female Avengers team. And every month you stay subscribed, you're entered to win a new slab. And this video is in collaboration with Key Collector Comics. Download the Key Collector app and use code BRYSCOMICS for a free 2-week trial of the app. There's dozens of awesome categories on the Key Collector app that make collecting and hunting more efficient and effective and often profitable. And there's even a category where a lot of the books on this list came from called iconic covers. Download the Key Collector app and use code BRYSCOMICS if you don't already have it. And this was a tricky list to put together because I wanted books that had iconic covers without any other key significance going on with the book, at least nothing major. And the reason for that is I wanted to switch it up and provide a list of books that are good investments no matter what happens. A lot of times spec books are heavily dependent on TV shows or movies and people being introduced and whatnot. So this list is less risky books because it's just based on the cover art and people are always going to enjoy the cover art of these books. But since it's less risky, it also means there's less potential ROI. They're just going to be slow, steady gainers. Probably not too many major movement for these books. And number 6 on the list, we have Wolverine #8 from 1989. This is a fantastic cover by John Buscema with the added bonus of a pinup back cover by Rob Liefeld. So essentially you get 2 awesome covers for the price of 1. And apart from the iconic cover, this book really has no key significance, but it will continue to rise in value based on cover alone. As more collectors come into the hobby and discover it, more people will want to buy it. As you can see from the sales data here, for a CGC 9.8, this book has been on a steady climb since 2017. It saw a huge boost in March of 2021, as with the rest of the comic book market, and is basically maintaining around the $400 mark at the moment. This book is a slow burn, not a crazy hot spec book by any means, but over time it will consistently perform well and slowly go up. Number 5 on the list, we have Batman #423, an iconic cover by Todd McFarlane. And this is a book that has been cover swiped many times. And honestly, if you see this book and you don't want it in the PC, I think there might be something wrong with you. It actually has a cool backstory as well. In an interview that Todd did on Comic Tom's channel, I'll put a link down in the description to Comic Tom, and specifically this interview, I highly recommend you watch it. Todd revealed that this cover was about cutting corners. He needed to get the cover done in a hurry to meet a deadline, so he designed it with this huge oversized cape to hide any anatomy of the characters, because drawing anatomy is more time consuming. And if you look closely at the cover, you can see that it is super simple, not a ton of detail, and that's what makes it pop so much. And the highly contrasting covers really make everything look sharp. And it's a really interesting concept about art is that the difficulty level and level of detail in the drawing doesn't always equate to a better piece of artwork. Some of my favorite covers are really simple designs like this. And this book has a first print, a second print, and a third print. The first print has the Batman head in the UPC code box, and it's the most expensive of the bunch. And the second and third prints look identical on the covers, except the words DC Comics aren't just for kids is in the UPC code box instead of the Batman head. And the second print and third print is actually completely indistinguishable from the cover. The only way you can tell the difference is in the indicia on the interior page. It says second or third print, but they both go for about the same price, so it doesn't really matter one over the other. My suggestion is to go with a second or third print because you're probably buying this to enjoy the art first and as an investment second. So why not get it for a third of the price? It's the exact same cover essentially. This book is also one that has had some big spreads. The first print in a 9.8 recently sold for $2,500, and it also recently sold for $1,200. So be patient, there are good deals to be had. Number 4 on the list, we have Fantastic Four number 112, and this is another classic cover by John Buscema. No key significance other than an iconic cover. However, it could be argued that this book has some speculative potential because if we see a fight between the Thing and the Hulk on the big screen, it could increase interest for this book and other Hulk versus Thing covers because there are several. This book has really only started to go up in value since the most recent market boom, and I think it's just a case of finally getting the recognition it deserves as a classic cover. High-grade copies of this book are performing better than mid and low-grade copies, so if you can swing it, I'd recommend going for a high-grade copy. And the reason is simple: supply and demand. This is a mostly black cover, so high-grade copies are hard to find, and more people want them, hence it performs better than the lower grades. Looking at the sales data for the CGC 9.2, the average sale price even survived the market correction that many books saw over the past 6 months, and it's still trending up. Number 3 on the list, we have Spider-Man number 1 from 1990, and we can't have an iconic cover video and not talk about this book. Written and illustrated by Todd McFarlane, probably one of the top 3 cover swiped books of all time. And for those of you that don't know what a cover swipe is, that's when another comic uses this cover as inspiration and puts a new twist on it. This is a really interesting book as far as value goes because there are probably millions of copies of this book across all the different covers. There's a green cover, a silver cover, a gold cover, a gold newsstand edition, a polybagged edition, a platinum edition, and I'm sure I'm leaving some edition out. And yet this book still fetches over $100 consistently for this, the silver edition, and is trending up. Looking at the CGC census, there are over 10,000 graded copies for the silver edition alone, and over 70% of those 10,000 graded copies are 9.8s, which is a really high percentage of 9.8s for a book. And the reason for this is that speculators and dealers bought this book by the case. Some dealers by the truckload, and the vast majority of copies of this book were never read. And so that's why we have such a high percentage of 9.8s on the census, and you should absolutely stick with 9.8s for this book. So why does it still maintain value? Well, the cover is just that good. People don't care how many of these are out there. They just want one for the PC, and I don't blame them. This book will always be collectible, and there will always be completionists that want every edition of this book. A rabbit hole that I went down myself, but then I decided to really consolidate my collection and my strategy. But there will always be new collectors entering the comic community, and when they see this cover for the first time, they're going to want to buy it. And with a sticker price of around $100 for a CGC 9.8, it's a pretty easy sell. So that's why I think over time this book will continue to hold value and perform well. Taking a look at the sales data for a CGC 9.8 of the silver edition, you'll notice that there is a huge spread for this book, which means there are consistently outlier highs and outlier lows for this book, and that's just a direct result of there being so many copies available on the secondary market. The takeaway from this is do not be one of the outlier highs for this book. Save a search on eBay and snag one at auction for a low price because they will always be available. Number 2 on the list, we have Iron Man number 150, a classic cover by Bob Layton and a classic Doctor Doom battle cover. And I wanted to get a Doctor Doom cover on this list because I think if and when we get Doom confirmed in the MCU, there will be a big surge in all of the Doom covers, and man, is there a lot of them. And I wanted to pick one that didn't have any key significance other than the cover because there's lots of those too, but this is the one that I landed on. And looking at the sales data for a CGC 9.6, this book has performed really well and is hovering around that $300 mark. This isn't a crazy hot spec book. I wouldn't expect any huge gains for this book, but I would expect slow and steady gains, especially if Doom is a long-term recurring villain in the MCU, which I'm sure he will be. And number 1 on the list, we have Hulk, number 340, another classic Todd McFarlane cover. No key significance besides the cover, yet one of the greatest covers of all time, as voted in various forums amongst collectors for years. And Todd also talked about this cover in his interview with Comic Tom. Again, link down in the description to Comic Tom in this interview. And it was another cover that Todd just wasn't all that proud of. And looking at the cover, it really isn't all that detailed. Again, kind of like Batman 423. I mean, the reflection of the Hulk and the adamantium claws takes some degree of difficulty, but I would say it's a relatively simple design. And there's a newsstand and a direct edition for this book. This book is from 1988, so the newsstand edition is about twice as rare as the direct edition. So for about every 20 direct editions of this book, there's about 10 newsstand editions overall. However, the 9.8 newsstand for this book is a ghost. There's only 2 recorded sales of a CGC 9.8 newsstand of this book. 2. And I'm not sure what this can be accounted towards. It seems very odd that there aren't more 9.8 newsstands given how many copies of this book are out there, but the numbers don't lie, and the available inventory on eBay confirms it. You can find a lot of newsstand editions on eBay, but you're hard-pressed to find a 9.8 newsstand. And I think this might be a situation where the 9.6 newsstand is undervalued because there are only 8 recorded sales of the 9.6 newsstand, and they're going sub $600 right now. And while I was researching for this video, I found a CBCS 9.8 newsstand old label on eBay listed for $1,399, and I couldn't buy it fast enough. The last sale for a CGC 9.8 newsstand was $3,400, and the sale prior to that was $4,000. And again, those were the only 2 sales recorded. And I was really scratching my head about this because it seemed like the numbers were a little too scarce for the 9.8 newsstand, but digging a little deeper, I think I've just underestimated the rarity of 9.8 newsstand books from this era. And I looked at ASM 300 in a 9.8 newsstand, and there's also only 2 recorded sales for that book, one of which being that monster $20,000 sale record breaker. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to the channel, and you're entered to win this month's giveaway, which is Amazing Spider-Man number 1, the first cameo appearance of Cindy Moon, also the first appearance of Clash. Sign up for the newsletter at brycecomics.com for another chance to win a slab. This month is A-Force number 1, first appearance of Singularity, and the first all-female Avengers team. As always, thank you so much for sticking with me all the way to the end of the video, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bryce Comics.